because our next guest is Chalmer Williams, but the name in the chat is not Chalmer Williams. So
well, it's not Liz either, though. Huh?
Okay, so that's Chalmer, because I recognize his face from this picture. But the name says Liz Garbett. So are you able to? Okay, good. Because that way, when we do the splitting of the interview and we do the media part of it, we have the correct name on the screen. So Chalmer, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Hey, glad to be here.
Okay, can you bring the camera down just a little bit? Just there, yeah, right there. Well, yeah, up a little bit. Okay, okay. Yeah, so you're straight on. And I saw you had a Tuskegee sweatshirt on.
Yep.
Are you an alumnus of Tuskegee?
I am an alumnus of Tuskegee, and I felt like it would only be fitting to wear the shirt, considering that's what the book is about.
Well, okay. All right. Well, I didn't realize that. Removing the Veil of Bondage, that's what this is about there?
Yeah, Removing the Veil of Bondage, memoirs of my college experience.
Oh, okay. So it's a memoir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wow. My daughter has that sweatshirt, by the way. She went to an HBCU and she collects HBCU sweatshirts. She wants to eventually have them all. So she has Tuskegee as one of hers.
Cool.
But she went to North Carolina Central.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So and what inspired, I'm sorry, were you finished?
No, I was done.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna ask, what inspired you to write your memoirs about your college experience?
I think for me, I think it was a pivotal moment to write about my college experience. I mean, I didn't write about the whole 4 to 5 years. I just wrote about the last year and a half because I felt that was significant, because that was when spiritual transformation took place and I gave my life to the Lord.
Wow. Oh, okay. So is it about that specific moment in time, so to speak? Wow.
Yes, it's that moment in time of when everything slows down and you have a person on campus that asks that age-old question: if you die right now, where would you go? And so, you know, for me, this book, I start in chapter 1 just like that. Like, there's no build up. We jump right in. It's my senior year in college, and I take you right into that moment.
Wow.
College is a transformational period for people who go, especially when you leave home and go.
Yeah, I think college is one of those things that everybody's searching. And that's kind of how I build up chapter 1. Everybody's searching. They're trying to find who they are. You know, most people that ask me, you went to a HBCU, did you join a fraternity or for sorority? Because they think that's, where your identity lies. You know what I mean? Like, HBCUs are only known for, stepping in fraternities and sororities, or, your major, or your sexuality, or athletics, or social clubs. I mean, the list goes on and on. But, there's not a lot of times where you hear people talk about how going to a HBCU helped them find God.
Well, or college period, but
college period.
Yeah, well, I do hear what you're saying though about going to an HBCU, but I don't know. I think in some ways unfortunately, I didn't go to an HBCU. However, I was a part of the Black Student Union.
Yeah.
And our spirituality was a huge part of everything that we did. Whenever we went to meetings, we made sure we prayed before the meetings. There were times when our Black Student Union all went to church together. We chose a church and we went to church together. We started a gospel choir. And I'll tell you, gospel choirs in college are amazing. We used, even after I joined the Army, I remember there was a local college in the city where we lived that had a wonderful gospel choir, and we invited them to our church to sing. So
Mhm.
I do feel that probably more in HBCUs than maybe other schools. Spirituality does play a large part in the whole HBCU experience. I mean, my
Yeah.
daughter went to Clark Atlanta, and I tell you, the class president got up and preached a sermon about breaking chains because and breaking bonds, because these kids were in school and many of them were the first generation to go to college, and
Yeah.
he basically preached a sermon on that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it wasn't, but usually that's not the first thing people mention, right?
Mhm.
So just like Tuskegee and many other historically Black colleges and universities, we had a chapel on campus, just like some others, you know what I mean? We had groups that had choirs and things, but when you start talking to people in conversation, that's not the first thing they mention. They either mention the fraternities, the sororities, the athletics, the scholarships, what kind of job you got, different things like that. And that's why I kind of framed it in that way.
I understand that. Mhm.
Yeah, the choirs are a big part of that HBCU experience. My daughter was in the choir, and
Yeah,
they
I
traveled
wasn't.
and did choir competitions and things like that.
For me, I was just a regular student. I wasn't a part of the choir. I didn't go to chapel service only when I had to. So, even though I grew up in the church, once I got on my own in college, those first few years, it was everything but God. You know what I mean? So,
Well, I
Well,
can see
yeah,
why
like I
that was
said, the
such a
college
pivotal experience for you then.
yeah, the college experience, that's your first, when you go away from home, that's when what your parents taught you gets tested.
yes, and I
Yeah,
And
mean,
exactly. Exactly.
and then you try to go against some of the things they taught you, thinking that you know better or whatever, that they're old fashioned, they're just old, and they they don't get it. And so then you bump your head a few times, and then you realize, okay, that they do get it. What they told, that's what they meant when they said whatever it was, X and Y, Z. That's what they were talking about. But it's a process.
it's
You
definitely
know.
a process. I mean, for me growing up, I knew a lot of religion, but I didn't know relationships. So the way this guy had approached me,
Mhm.
it was like mind blowing. Like he was talking about love and relationship and purpose. And I had never heard, all of those things were like a foreign concept to me. I was like, well, I mean, you speak in tongues or you shouting, that's your ticket to heaven. That's what it looked like in my mind at, 21, 22 years old. So when I had this guy able to
There's still
lock,
people who think that their ticket to heaven is just because they can speak in tongues.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so that's why I felt like writing this book was pivotal because, it shows how I came to know, God in a different way. And it
Mhm.
shows honesty, the things that I struggled with, the things that I had to overcome. The initial conversation, I didn't say yes at first. You know what I mean? Because I didn't understand it. And I was like, I can't commit to something that I don't understand.
Right.
So
So who is the primary audience for your book?
young adults,
Okay.
college students. That's pretty much my primary audience, that 18 to 24 demographic.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm glad you said that, because some people don't know the audience for their book. You ask them what the audience is, and they'll say, well, everybody. And that's not a really good answer, because everybody's not going to read
Yeah,
every
I mean,
book. Yeah.
anybody can read my book, but I always tell people that I'm encouraging to write books, always have the beginning with the end in mind. And so I knew when I started this book, like this was going to be the audience, it was going to be dedicated to.
Okay. So is this your first book?
Second.
Okay, second book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So your second book, a lot of people's first books, especially, are memoirs or autobiographical, they say. but your second book was that. And so what was your first book about?
Me again. Me again. I mean, I don't know if I fit the mold of how you're supposed to write books, but what I do know is true is that your life is like a written letter for others to read. And so my first book is an autobiography or a nonfiction based on a life-changing moment that happened when I was 17.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep. And so that book is called Fighting for a Laugh. Shameless plug. You can find that on Amazon now for $8.99.
It's not a shameless plug when we're here to
No.
plug you. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, this is,
I know we're talking about the second one, so that's fine.
well, no, this is all about you and your work and your inspiration and your motivations and how people are responding to your book. So what kind of responses are you getting from your book? And when did your book come out?
Which one, the first or the second one?
New one. The
The
newest
new
one.
one came out January of this year.
Okay.
I think it was the 23rd, came out January of this year.
Okay.
Released it independently. My first book came out the week after COVID hit, so March 2020.
Okay.
And
Yeah, a lot of people wrote books during COVID. I bet you there's a million books that got written during COVID.
But you didn't write that book because of COVID. You had already started that one, right?
I had already started in 2019. The release date was
it was
March
2020.
2020, not knowing COVID
COVID.
was coming down the pipeline.
Oh, okay.
So
All
COVID
right.
hit, I think, spring break or March, second or third week, and my book came out a week later. So I was really nervous, sweating bullets, because I'm like, man, nobody's going to read this. This is going to flop. And it actually did the exact opposite because everybody was in the house.
Yeah, people had time to read. They had to do something.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of books got written and read during, especially that first year of COVID.
Yeah, first year. So it did really well. At one point, it was top 100 on Amazon.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of
second, but that still counts as something.
It still counts. It happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And something you said about the mold for being an author or whatever. There's really not a mold. I mean, there are formulas that the industry has for books when they sign people, the big publishers. They have like a blueprint.
Yeah.
But if you're self-published, there is no mold. You can do whatever you want to do. That's one benefit of it. Now, you don't have the distribution that the big publishers have, but then you control your rights. You still own your rights. And so you can do whatever your mind, you're not locked into doing the same or doing like a 2-book thing or, a time frame. People will say they have a deadline, with the big publishers, they have a deadline, so they have to write. It's like writing on demand.
Yeah, I hate that.
I can't do it because my ideas don't flow like that.
Yeah, I mean,
my time doesn't flow like that.
And so, for me, I just like the freedom to kind of move at my own pace and control my narrative and, not worried about getting caught up in the numbers so much, but just how to, change people's lives, impact people's lives.
Yeah, I love that phrase, control the narrative, because there's some books that are self-published that the industry would never publish. They just wouldn't do it, or they would want to change it so much that it's no longer the book that you originally wanted it to be.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard to change something when I'm writing from true events. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, but they might even want to add things or say this is too, this won't work with this audience, as if they know everything. That these are just some of the tropes that you hear from
it's
people.
a business at the end of the day, so I understand.
It is, and they tried to do what's already been proven,
Mhm,
but
Right.
they don't break new ground.
mhm.
The new groundbreaking normally comes from somebody new or somebody that's self-published, and then they tap into it. That's just how that is. But there's so many options now for people, which is really great in terms of self-publishing. It's affordable, it's accessible, and you can publish fast. You don't have to wait that 2 years after your book is finished that you do in the industry. You
Mhm.
can get your
That's
book
true.
out pretty
That's
quick.
true.
So from why did you title it about the veil of bondage? Why did you?
So that title is kind of paying homage to the founder of Tuskegee, Booker T. Washington. So Booker T. Washington has a quote that he goes, it's called lifting the veil of ignorance, right?
Mm.
And I almost went with that title, but I was like, nah, that might ruffle some feathers, especially if I can't get it clear from the school. So I kind of remixed it, if you will, rephrased it so that it would fit. It would sound similar, but not exact. But it's paying homage to Booker T in the sense because he has a statue in the middle of the campus where he's holding his hand out and he's putting his arm around a slave that's bent over, barely has any clothes on, and he's kind of showing lifting lifting the veil of ignorance through education and skill set.
So are you going to, you think that you're going to write another book and everything is going to be a pivotal moment, so to speak?
Yeah, I think so. My next book, I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but my next book will probably be on fatherhood. I don't know
Oh,
the
yes.
concept or the format, but my next book will probably be on fatherhood. Just because I work in that line of work. I have a podcast called Fatherhood Fridays, so I think it would only be fitting to have that as the next and final one.
I did notice that you had a podcast when I looked at your link. So how
Mhm.
often does your podcast air?
So Fatherhood Fridays airs every Friday, weekly. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Breaker, like all of the major podcast platforms. And either myself or I bring on a guest, and we just talk about fatherhood, and the many different topics that fathers deal with today.
Well, all right.
Are you a father?
I am a father. I'm a father of 2 kids. I have a boy and a girl, Cedric and Tamara, 10 and 7.
Oh, okay. So what do you think some of the challenges of fatherhood are today?
Um,
I
well,
know there are only
I
many,
mean,
but
there's a lot of challenges, but I think one is stigmatism, right?
Mm.
There's still this stigma that there are a lot of absentee fathers. Well, that's not totally correct. There's actually, especially African Americans, there's more fathers in the home now than there was ever before. So that's one stigmatism, and fathers wanting to be more involved in their kids' lives uh, has been an evolution over the last probably 20, 30 years. So
yeah, I'm not
stigma-
sure about your statistic on the fathers in the home today, the numbers wise.
numbers
Where are you getting
when it
your
when it
information?
comes when it comes
Are
to
you
race,
referring to living in?
well, see, I think let's break this down. What
Okay.
is really an absent father, right? An absent father is a father that's non-existent. Just because you're not married to the mother of your child doesn't necessarily make you an absent father, because to be absent is to totally not be present. You might not be living in the home, you might not be involved, but you're not necessarily absent either. So I think changing the verbiage and changing the language, that's another thing that many fathers deal with. as being a father, on top of the statistics, on top of not getting the necessary support or resources needed. Fatherhood has only been studied probably since the 50s or 60s, to be honest. Everybody else, women and children, have been studied a lot longer. So when we look at these, social services support systems, they've initially been dedicated to the mother or the children. And so for so long, fathers have only been looked at as just a provider. And so, through my line of work and just in generally speaking, that is another challenge, is convincing a father like you are more than just a paycheck. Because also statistics show, because I go to these conferences all the time, that the fathers have the greatest impact as far as success rates in a kid graduating from high school, a kid not going to jail, reading, going to college, so on and so forth. Having that father in the home has the greater impact. But we also share the greater impact when it comes to mental health. We have the higher rate of suicide. We have the higher rate of depression. We have the higher rate of anger management, and so on and so forth.
Because of everything that's on that father's shoulders.
Because of everything that's on the father's shoulders. And many fathers that I work with don't understand that there are resources out there, that there's support out there, that there are teaching out there to help you evolve into the father that you were meant to be, not the father that you looked up to 30, 40 years ago.
Well, I totally agree with you on the impact part, because every study that's ever been done shows that the present father has a tremendous positive impact. Or let me say this, the negative outcomes are dramatically reduced when the father is present. And that can be living in, as you say, or involved, regularly involved. All those negative outcomes is dramatic. The difference is dramatic when the father is present and involved. So and I'm glad to see that that's a topic of discussion. Fatherhood. I think that's a great topic to talk about, because we don't hear as much about that fatherhood, other than the fact that they're not there.
Exactly. And I think for me, my podcast gives a voice to that, because you're able to hear real stories. You're able to, hear honesty. You're able to hear struggle. You're able to hear wisdom. You're able to hear like, hey, you're able to hear me. Like, I'm one of them too. Just because I do the host the podcast doesn't mean that I have everything figured out. Right. I'm walking right alongside you, trying to figure this out together. You know what I mean? And I think that's how it should be, is that instead of me telling you what to do, allow me to walk alongside you and build that rapport. And so we can figure this out together, because there's strength in numbers.
Beautiful.
That is, I really admire what you're doing with that, because there's also fathers aren't going to be perfect, because mothers aren't perfect. So some people, I think they also have unrealistic expectations of perfection, and that's just, nobody's going to be perfect. But the presence, unless there's some kind of abuse or something, and and this is what bothers me when you sometimes talk about how fathers need to be present or have a positive outcome. They'll fall back on the default is, well, it's better for him to not be there than if he's a drug addicted, alcoholic, abuser, or domestic violence. No, why does that have to come into the conversation at all? A father's not going to be perfect, because a mother's not perfect, but the fact that he's there present and wanting to raise his children and be involved in their development is what's important.
Yeah, and I just think that, like you said, no parent is perfect. And I think that when it comes to fatherhood, you have to meet fathers where they're at. And every father is at a different place in life. And most fathers just want to be understood, instead of being justified. And I meet fathers like that, like they're already defending their case with me. And I'm like, look, man, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to tell you, what you did right or wrong. I'm here to support you. I'm here to build you up. I'm here to get you through these lessons. And, some fathers, when the program is over with, they're crying. They're writing me thank you cards. And, for another man to write another man a thank you card with some money in it, that goes a long way. That goes a long way, because we don't do stuff like that.
You really
Yes.
touched him,
Well,
So-
we have a couple of minutes left, but we did have a number of comments and questions in the chat.
Okay.
I'll start with Sherry Carthen. She said excellent points. And how do dads get information on what sort resources are available to support them?
Well, there are several resources available. So I'm here. I'm honestly not in Houston. I'm in Austin. There's a nonprofit that I work for called Safe Alliance. You can go through that. There's iDads, that's another one. You can go through the manandme.org. There are different programs that I can list when we get off, that it has like a Google search, and you can find different programs in your area that can provide pretty much intervention for that father.
Okay, awesome. And another question, I'm BLUS, the book, Black in the US, wanted to know what your message was that you wanted to express to your readers. Probably talking about your latest book.
The message that I wanted to express to my readers in my latest book, Removing the Veil of Bondage, is that, in life, the Spirit of God is always looking for an opportunity to meet you where you are. And for me, that was college. And even though initially I said no, there's still always going to be someone or something that is trying to draw you closer to him. And why? So his kingdom can advance. So your purpose of why you've been birthed can be created. So that would be my message.
Now, Chalmer, do you have
sermons?
Yeah. Do you have a copy of your book? Because we haven't seen the cover yet.
Yeah.
But since you've been on the show, so we wanted people to see the cover. So if they want to order,
I don't know if you can see this in
put it closer to you. Put it closer to you.
Closer to you.
Closer to you. Well,
No,
move it
in
forward.
front of you.
In front of
There
you.
you go.
Yeah, there you go, right there. Okay, and that's Removing the Veil of Bondage. It's by Chalmer Williams, and it's available on his website and most likely Amazon as well.
That is correct.
And Rhonda put the website in the chat so people can access it.
All right. Sounds good. Any more questions out there?
No, the most
few comments.
Statements. It's mostly comments.
Yeah.
But you engaged, the audience was very engaged in the interview. Oh, where are you from? But did you answer that already?
No. So currently I live in Austin, Texas, but believe it or not, I know I'm gonna get some laughs. I am from Denver, Colorado.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yep.
Denver's not bad.
no, we don't meet many brothers from there,
I know.
but
I know. And so when I left, the Black population disappeared. I'm just messing with you.
That's funny. Well, Chalmer, now are you registered for the festival?
I am registered for the festival.
Okay, I can't remember. Every now sometimes I get between the people on the show and the people registered for the festival. Sometimes there's overlap. So our previous guest is also Charles Rinthrop. He's also going to be at the festival. So we will see you there in a couple of days.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate you guys taking the time out.
All
Okay,
right, well, we look forward to meeting you next week.
All right, sounds good.
Well, this
This
weekend, I
week.
guess I should
this
say.
week, it's this
Yeah,
week, Rhonda.
weekend.
You
Yeah,
should be flying here in 2 days.
No,
I
I'm
will
just
be. I'll
I'm
see
gonna
you.
just drive. I'm just driving. It's just 2-3 hours for me. So I'll see you
Well,
guys.
it's
couple
more
of-
than
Yeah,
2-3 hours for
Rhonda's in
me.
DC area, so she
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you see us both this weekend.
All right, sounds good.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care.
All right,
Safe
y'all have a good one.
travels. You
All right.
too.
Bye now.